Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to have you here. This is the Policy Project Student Ambassador Leadership Speaker Series, and we're so excited to welcome Nina Barnes. Hi, Nina.
Hi, Jane. I'm so excited to be here.
Nina is an extraordinary leader in the state of Utah, and she is also a board member for the Policy Project. And we're so thrilled that she can be with us today to talk about leadership and specifically our circles of influence that we've talked about in our training this month. Before we get started, I'm just going to read you guys her bio so that you have a little bit of her background. And then Nina, if I miss anything, please fill in for me. Nina is passionate about community education, underserved populations, and helping others reach their full potential. Her quest for community involvement began as general coordinator for Park Discovery, a project that brought together 10,000 volunteers to make a dream park for a reality. That's amazing. This experience led to serving as a Cedar City Councilwoman, Southern Utah University Board of Trustee, Utah State Board of Regent, Utah Women Run, and a past vice president of the Utah Federation of Republic Women. She is currently engaged with the Policy Project, A Broader Way Forward in Utah, and Envision Utah, where she encourages political representation and helps drive policy. Nina received her bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University and a master's in public administration from Southern Utah University, where she teaches as an adjunct professor. I want to talk about that later. And she owns and operates several businesses, is married to Keith Barnes, has 5 children, and a cherished granddaughter. We're so glad to have you.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
It's amazing. And I just have to add that we have some personal connections too. I lived in Cedar City for 5 years and we crossed paths there. And then we also have my grandparents and her parents work together in community efforts. So it's no surprise that we find ourselves here working on community engagement, civic involvement, policy, making a difference. So that makes it kind of extra special to work together.
Died that they modeled that for us, right? If they could see us now. Your project.
Well, this month we have talked about circles of influence, and I'm wondering if you'll go way back, not too far back, but to when you were starting out in your leadership and circles of influence, and kind of give us some tips and ideas of how our student ambassadors can look at their circles, learn about them, and then lead.
Love that. Thanks for teeing that up, Jane. That's perfect. Well, first, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to be speaking to the student ambassadors. First, kudos to you kids that are engaged in civic and community endeavors, and that you're trying to really be intentional about your future life and the things you want to include and the skills you want to develop. I just really wish I could meet you all in person, but I'm really, really proud of this. I adamantly believe that these decisions, young or old, really impact the quality of life you have, both in your home, in your marriage or partnerships, in the way you live life, and in the way you feel about your contributions here on earth. So way to go, student ambassadors. Huge fan, and shout out to you guys. So with that, I wanted to talk. I know Jane just read my bio and it sounds like, oh, she's done all that. It's really not all that. I started like you guys as just a young teenager. I happened to have an opinion. I felt passionate about things. I would be frustrated at injustices in my own life. And so my first leadership just started by just looking around in my very small world of home and maybe my church community and maybe my school, and having ideas and suggestions and solutions that I wanted to be part of, whether it was in my school student government or in my youth group in my church. I just always was willing to put myself out there a little bit and suggest ideas and lean into whatever was happening or needed to be done. And I think those are skills that I didn't know at the time, but I was developing and were being harnessed to be really powerful developmental areas that I could use later in my life. And so I see those things that built one upon another. I was fortunate because I was in a home where my parents really fostered this. As Jane and I mentioned, grew up with parents who were highly engaged in community service. And so I was lucky, but I've also have a lot of friends I work with who were in homes where this didn't exist. And they felt odd man out oftentimes in figuring out how to influence in that sphere. And so I would say the first thing to do to influence outside of yourself is to develop your own and hone into your own characteristics and celebrate and own those ideas and passions and, public good areas that you want to impact.
Thank you. I love that because you mentioned identifying your own strengths. And we talked about this in our September training when we talked about finding your person. We did a personality test and identified strengths, and then talked about how you can build on those strengths. And one thing that is interesting is when we have natural inclinations, we think maybe everyone else does too. But the older I am, the more I realize that we are unique, that each of us has a gift. Everyone has gifts, and that we can use those. Kristen Andrus, who is with the Policy Project, is such a great champion. Right now we're working on the Safe Child Project, and she has invited people to use their talents if they're great with balloon art, because we need balloon arches and people can support in that way. We've had high fit aerobics classes because we can't all be instructors, and we can bring these talents together and influence. If you're an artist, you can offer up your skills to contribute to graphics for an event, or donate a piece of art to a good cause to raise money. So I love identifying those strengths and then capitalizing on them for the good of everybody else. Tell me a little bit about I want to talk about building on successes. So you're starting out, you take a chance to lead and it goes well. Or maybe it doesn't go well. How do you build on that and move from maybe serving in your circle of influence, like friends, family, church, and move on to the next step? So do you have some advice of how, or maybe what you did to take your leadership from that smaller sphere to slightly bigger one?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think we're talking back about being in our youth, right? The age you guys are, and not even realizing that you're already started your journey. Your journey is not going to begin after high school or after college or once you're in a marriage or in a family. Your journey's already begun, and you're already kind of defining who you are, what your personality is, what your passions are, and what you do with those passions and those desires, like to serve or to make change. So don't think that it's going to be someday out there. It's already happening in your life and in your schools and your family. So for me, I was lucky again, and I would encourage many of you in your own sphere to lean into it. It may be at the dinner table in a conversation that you're not comfortable with what's being said, or you may have a different opinion. It may be in your church group or in your classroom that you're hearing a discussion and yet you have something you want to contribute or a different perspective to offer. And I think that courage and influence starts very young. It may be with a group of friends at lunch where you just really feel like your experience or your passion or your interest has a different perspective. That's the first way and the first step to harness your passion and your influence in that sphere, however small it is. And those successes build one on top of another to give you more courage and more confidence to lean into your own life. Like Jane said, we don't want to all influence in the same way. We don't all need to be politicians or all be on the school board or whatever, or all be in student government. We need to all figure out, where are we passionate about? What do I care about? What's the fire inside of me that gets me fired up? And lean into that space with our different skill set and our different talents. And that's how we really get this momentum going to where you could take that first step. So one of my first steps was young mom. I had 2 kids. I think I was pregnant. And I lived in a community that literally did not have playgrounds. They had one little tiny swing set structure, just no place for us to go. And we built a playground. We built Park Discovery, which was, we fundraised $500,000 and had 700 kids dream up this playground. And all of a sudden I became in charge of this whole Park Discovery project. And it didn't start with Park Discovery. It started in high school at 13 and 14 with those little things I mentioned before in my life that built confidence, got me some education, had some other life experience, and was able to take that skill set and really lead a big, huge grassroots project that ended up in this phenomenal park in Iron County. And so don't ever think the story ends there or starts there. It's already started. And when opportunity comes, you will have been prepared to step into that new space and contribute in that sphere with your influence and your preparation.
I love that. Thank you. I am also thinking about how sometimes we feel like leadership comes with position. And I love how you've been focused on how it isn't. You don't have to be voted into something in order to lead. One question I wanted you to focus on today too is how you are such a great relationship builder. I would love for you, as these student ambassadors are thinking about expanding their circles, can you give us some tips on how you cultivate relationships in new, with new people and in new circles?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. And I think that's a skill set that many of us have. And it's also a skill set that can be developed. So one of my goals in life has been just to build friendships and not see barriers. I moved to Utah my senior year of high school. There were all different crowds and different groups. And I moved in and I became friends with all the groups. And I mean, all the groups. Mm-hmm. And I had a core group of friends who kept throwing out one-liners about how can you be friends with this group, or those groups are partiers, or those groups are whatever the category was. Mm-hmm. And I just always try to see people as people. I like people. And I know that all people have areas that I'm going to like and that we can relate on. And so I've really just built a life of celebrating diversity, celebrating people that don't look like me, and really leaning into that. And I think that's been one of the greatest gifts that that has helped me in my whole life of service. And so I would say to you, learn to like people, learn to realize that everyone you meet, there's something that you could take away that will make you a better person. Mm-hmm. And be understanding and kind to other people. Not all people have had the opportunity I had or the comforts I had in life, but they can all teach me something. I can learn from them and I can be a better leader. And also you get to go through life without enemies. When you make friends with people, you don't have to do the extra work of having people you don't like, which hurts you and actually hurts them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, such great advice. I have loved watching Nina in action. She knows everyone, and I've seen that she has cultivated and built friendships through the years and in different spheres. It's been wonderful to watch. We were recently in Southern Utah, where she currently lives, and it was amazing to see how many friendships of trust that you have built, and not necessarily we go to lunch together, but that we have mutual respect for one another. So thank you for that great advice. Well, we are about out of time, but I just wanted to ask, you have had the opportunity to lead and be involved in many different arenas in the public service, in higher education. You teach at a university. Are there any tips that you would want to give the student ambassadors as they've signed themselves up to be part of this program? They're interested, they are like-minded. Is there any advice you'd want to leave with them as we close?
Oh, I have so much advice.
Give it to us all.
Yeah, I will. The first thing I would say is build confidence and know you're enough. Exactly what you're bringing to the table right now as a student ambassador is amazing. And your life experience has already prepared you to be a player. You don't need to do A, B, and C to get there. You're already there because you're signed up in this program and you have a seat at the table. And so I would say own that and build your self-confidence. Make choices in your life that make you like yourself and empower yourself to lean in and know that you can contribute. That's a big one, especially at your age, and especially in this time where we have so many kids your age struggling to find and to actually like themselves. So that would be my first tip. My next,
I feel like I need a Nina quote. Make choices that make you like yourself. That is so good.
We're not raising our people, particularly our women or marginalized kids, to really like yourself. And that is the most important person you like, and develop that like you're already doing. The next thing is to figure out what gets you excited. What do you love to do? What are you passionate about? So that you can spend your life doing things, making change, influencing others because you're actually passionate about it and you like it. And sometimes that's really hard work to figure out what I like. We've been conditioned and raised to worry about what everyone else likes. But if you're going to do social work, really learn to figure out what do you like to do. And then the third thing fits in right with your goal for this month, which is you have a goal of how I'm going to lead in 2024. It's January, right? The month of goals. So each one of you needs to find areas and make a goal that's measurable. Not just this lofty, I'm going to lead in 2024. That's not going to work. You need something measurable. I'm going to go to 3 city council meetings. I'm going to write 5 legislators and make 2 phone calls. I'm going to do actually measurable things that may be difficult or uncomfortable. I'm going to bring up a political conversation at my dinner table. Or I'm going to talk about this hot topic with my friends. Or I'm going to go volunteer. Whatever it may be, make some goals this year. Push yourself. I'm going to read a couple books or listen to some podcasts. The list is endless, but each one of you can do the work to make the goals and to have a successful year, and just keep developing that leadership goals.
Oh, excellent advice. And I'm going to add, maybe you want to add, receive the Leadership and Policy Service Award through the Student Ambassador Program, which means that you do 5 of the 9 trainings and tasks. And if you're a senior, that means that you can apply for our scholarship. So those would be great goals that you could achieve this year too. Yeah. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, Nina. Thank you for your wisdom and advice and experience that you've shared with us today. And thanks to all of you for joining us, and we hope you have a great month.